Hello, welcome to Florida Capital T. My name is Anna Marie, and I'm sitting down with Miss Tifany Hill. Again, this is our second meeting because we've already had one, but thank you so much for meeting with us on such late notice. I know I called you today. Do you want to update us on everything?
Yeah, that's fine. No problem.
So what seat are you running for? Can you remind us?
I am running for Tallahassee City Commission seat 5.
Seat 5.
Seat
Awesome.
5.
All right. So update us. What's been going on? Because we talked to you a couple months ago. So there's been quite a few things that have happened. But how is your campaign going?
Yeah, well, it's very exciting. And I am grassroots. Like, I am that true grassroots person. Like, I am boots on the ground, going in the neighborhoods, getting phone calls from people that want to speak with me at their homes. And I go in and, and I always say, I may not have sat at a city commission, a city commissioner seat, but I have sat at plenty resident seats, which makes a big difference when you can talk to residents one-on-one. So I really enjoyed that. And, just to hear them say, oh my God, you actually came. Or you actually responded to my email, or you called me. Like, that just makes my heart feel so good, because that is what public service is all about. And I think as a city commissioner, you should be open to going to any neighborhood. It doesn't matter,
And your seat's at large, I believe, right? So you're representing everybody across the city.
Everybody that is within the city limits of Tallahassee can vote for me. Yes.
Wow. Okay.
Yes. So, with me being new into this political arena, I was prior military. So if that's not political, what is? But, and then I worked for the government as well. So, but I've always done community service. I've always volunteered, whether it be with an organization or with the entrepreneur. Like we are here now at the Tea House. Like, I really love meeting.
Yeah, and I love the Tea House. Real quick, I just want to do a shout out.
Sure.
Can you introduce it for us?
Yes, this is the Brewer Herbal Company Tea House. And it's owned by a local couple. And her husband is military. He was a veteran. And she is an herbalist. Oh. So you can actually come here and she could put some stuff together for you. Like,
I was looking the other day over at the wall over there.
Right.
And all the oils and stuff that she has over there.
Yes. Miss Dana is just amazing. And you know what? It is so crazy. Like, I know people only like by first names, especially when we've been knowing each other for a while. You just that's kind of like, I don't know anybody's phone number by heart, right? Yeah. But I tell you, people should come and visit this location on South Adams Street. It is really a nice, homely feeling here. I love coming here.
Do you have a favorite tea that you order when you're here, or a favorite drink?
There is one of the workers here, staff here, that actually mix up a concoction. I never know what it is. I'll be like, just give me what you have. Like, whatever you mix up, I'll take it. And never failed. It's always an awesome taste. Always an awesome taste. It's so crazy. Yeah. So I just been, really learning a lot, about, this political game, basically, locally here in Tallahassee. And, it has a lot of pros and cons to it. And I understand why some people, they don't want to run, they don't want to get into this market. And, or even if they got into it, they don't want to do it again because of the experience that they have. So that is, it can be a challenge. It can be disheartening, in some cases, because it is an eye opener. And like I tell people, about the military is not for everyone, and neither is this. So you gotta, pull your big girl panties up, your big boy underwears up, and you roll. When you have a passion and a desire, to help your fellow residents, because you're so tired of seeing the status quo always winning, or always promoting the bigger companies.
I think what's hard for me is to see our neighbors go before the commission, every single week. And it's like you have all these neighbors having all these variety of issues.
Exactly.
And then not being heard. And I think that's kind of the hardest thing to watch, is seeing that over and over
Yes, that is. That's very hard seeing that. And I was one of the neighbors, I have been since I returned back to Tallahassee in 2014. And I started attending a lot of the city commission meetings. Now, when I was a high school student, and my dad was very active with his organization, like he would take me to a lot of the city commission meetings and different other meetings that I would go to with him. So I learned a lot even from there. The biggest thing is about, low income housing. Yeah.
So, talking about low income housing, we touched a little bit on this the last time that we talked about affordable housing and just making housing more accessible to people. Did you want to fill us in a little bit more on that, and kind of where you've transitioned, or if you have, like, what your position is on that?
Right. So first of all, we really need to look into our housing stock here, like what's available, right? So I do know, like, the housing authority, they have what's called scattered units. And these are like homes and apartments or condos, townhomes that they own. And roughly the last time that I looked, I knew that they had about 41, 42 scattered units. And a lot of people don't know about that. And it's actually public housing, so it's based on your income.
Okay.
And I think it's really unique that they have that. And it's something that maybe, me, if I was city commissioner, if I'm voted in, then that is something that I would probably really dive into to see how they do it. And I'm sure because they are part of HUD, and HUD, their definition of affordable housing is 30% of a person's gross income, to include the utilities.
And most of these units here aren't what the median pay for our area is.
Right.
If you look at the median pay for Tallahassee, a lot of us can't afford the affordable housing by the definition.
Right. Yeah. And you're looking at, and I'm not just talking about just the low income people. No, I'm talking about for everyone.
Everybody, yeah.
Someone who wants to buy a home, and they just got married, their dream is to buy a home, and right now it is not a buyer's market. And that is something that we got to change. And even with those, residents that are low income, at least, if they get a voucher, there's certain vouchers, and HUD has a really good program of home ownership with using the voucher. So that is something that I would want to look into and say, how can we apply this to even people that are not on a voucher or anything, like, and I would really like to bring to the tables the residents, the developers, and the environmental subject matter experts.
You gotta get everybody in the room. You gotta have this conversation.
You do. Yeah. You have to, because what's needed on the south end may not be needed on the north end or the west or the east. So we have to get people to the table. Like, if we want to build in a certain area, we need to get all those people together, and specifically, like, really the environmental people, because I want to make sure that we're not tapping something that we shouldn't be tapping on. Right. So that's what we need. We need more collaboration. We need more inclusivity, of other organizations, to hear their thoughts, to hear the residents. We have some very smart residents out here, and they have a lot of great ideas, even though they don't want to be in the seat. They don't want to run, but
we
it's
all play a role.
okay.
Some of us,
That's right.
you know, we don't sit in the seat and make the decisions,
Right.
but we have a role to play, and maybe that's advising, or maybe that
Exactly.
something else. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think, you know, we really should build like a department with a team like that. You know, like this is our go-to people. We're gonna sit to the table, and if it take us till 3:00 in the morning to figure something out, you know, that's what we need to do. And I feel like anytime that we are, you know, getting ready to do any type of deals, development deals, and all of that, for me, I would really want to put in a clawback provision.
Yeah.
Okay, because it's too many times that we have said, we're going to give you this money, or we're going to sell you this. But then it always goes sideways.
Well, like the Capital City Country Club.
Exactly. Like we said, okay, this person is going to buy the golf course. And then I read in the news, like, they didn't get the money. So because they didn't get the money, they reached out to an investor to get the money, which is what the people did not want. But had we had that clawback, that provision in there that says, if you're not able to get financed by the bank, and we are not taking money from investors, you have to get the money from the bank, right? If we had that in there and said, well, if you cannot get the financing, then you have to return it. Yeah. It reverses back.
And I think too, it comes to just kind of like weighing all the consequences before making the decision.
Yes.
This was already a very controversial topic.
It was.
We have the grave site that we talked about last time.
Right.
This is very controversial, and I think just weighing those consequences beforehand and thinking about every single outcome that could happen.
Right.
Could have prevented something like that.
It could have. And that's, you know, we have to really look at our processes. Like, we need to work on a policy with like doing that process that is including the people, the residents here in Tallahassee. Like, we really need to do that, because we don't need people to feel like they're just a number or an afterthought. So the residents need to be in the beginning, like to the point where we need to be going out into the communities doing presentations about whatever huge project is about to go on in their area.
And over some time too. So
over some time. That's right. Yeah. So it's like having little charrettes. You know, you're working together, trying to build, you're taking everybody's input, you're doing the environmental stuff. You know, if they say, no, that's going to affect our aquifer. Okay, we don't want to mess with the aquifer. We don't want to affect that. We have to protect that with all our might, because that is our drinking water, right?
Right. And actually, because you've mentioned the environment a
couple
of times, real quick, welcome to Florida Capital T. If you're just now joining, my name's Anna Marie. I'm sitting down with Miss Tifany Hill. Tifany, you're running for
Tallahassee City Commission C5.
If you want to check out more of her stuff, you can go to her website. It is linked in somewhere. There's a link attached that you can find. But we're going back to this. You mentioned the environment a couple of times. And one of the things that came up since the last time that we talked was the data center. And how would you have voted on putting just even something to pause that for a year, or something, or even just saying, no, we don't want a data center in Tallahassee? How are your feelings on that? What would you have done? Right.
So good question. And I definitely am not for data centers. We can't afford to have that here at all. For one, data centers, just from doing a little research, you know, they pull a lot of power. So we are already dealing with utility issues, right? Even though we own, you know, the city owns the utility, but still that is going to weigh hard on the utilities, right? And then you talk about water. We need our water. We need to protect that source, right? Because we already are having, like, Lake Jackson is lower than what it should be, right? So we need to protect all of that. What else? From what I read, the data centers, because they have fans and to keep it cool. So, and it sends out like a humming, like a annoying humming noise. Now, can you imagine someone who has tinnitus already? They're already dealing with tinnitus noise. And then you're going to add on that. And then where is this thing going to sit? So I was disappointed that the city majority, was like, oh, they voted against doing a moratorium. Yeah. I feel like they should have voted for the moratorium. And I understand that they said, oh yeah, we said we don't want it here. There is like land use provisions there and all that. But however, people have ways of circumventing a lot of those laws that are supposed to, be kicked in. And we need to be more protective. So if they would have put in a moratorium, that would have been like an ease, like nobody can put in an application. Because now, right now, someone could still put in an application. So if they would have did that, it would have halted any applications from coming in. And then if like this, I would have said, let's sit down to the table and let's talk about this. Like, what are we going to do? What type of policy can we add on to what's already there? Because we don't, and one thing that will be in it, you make it so difficult that people, data center, like the owners, would not want to come to Tallahassee because we are so deep in environmentally friendly that they are not going to want to pay the amount of money it would take for them to be here. Like we can say, hey, you got to be 5 to 10 miles away from any water source, any housing, any of our protective, like what we consider as protective. I mean, you can say you have to provide your own off-grid power. There's different options. And if you're using water, you have to take dirty water and you have to recycle it within your center, and it cannot be dispersed out. So there are different ways. So when you start doing stuff like that, because I would even say, you know what, if you want to be here also, you're going to have to pay us. Like, we're not going to pay any of your fees, any of that. You're going to have to pay for it. And I'll think of every service, the fire service fee. You're going to have to pay all of that.
If that goes up in flames, you're going to want a fire department to respond.
Right, exactly. You won't pay our police department. That's where, and so therefore the residents, they don't have to pay all that. So a lot of their property taxes and everything will go down, if we do it like that, but they're not, it'll take a real, like, serious investor that is really trying to be environmentally friendly to even want to be here. So that is a way that a moratorium would have gave them that time, and hopefully they're working on it right now to, say, hey, we're going to make this so difficult that no data center is going to want to come here. But at the same time, now I did read also that if we're in the same grid as someone who has a data center, it still could affect us here in utilities. So what I would do if I found out that somebody's, because I would keep an eye on who's on the grid with me.
I know that Wakulla, there's a few, and Wakulla comes to mind immediately, but that have actually put in something that says no data centers.
Right.
So there are some of the smaller communities and counties have done that, and I think it would be kind of cool to build like a little coalition of local governments.
I was about to say that.
Here.
Yeah, because I actually, I've been to Chattahoochee. They had like a little community meeting, and and I talked to them about, they were talking about using gas because they're trying to build up that city, and about using, natural gas or whatever. And I was like, hey, you guys have so much land. Why don't you use solar versus gas? Just use solar. And it was like, okay. So it gave them something to think about, because you are our neighbors, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we have to be protective of our right and left. It's like the military. You got to be protective,
I like
right?
that, though.
So that's what we want to do. And I'm glad you brought that up, because with the annexing issue that's out, right?
Yeah, well, you're talking about Lake Jackson, right?
Right,
I was
right.
actually gonna ask you about that
Oh,
too.
okay,
Yeah.
okay. So, certain things that happen, it always throws a light bulb up for me, on for me. And I'm wondering, why now do this person want to annex and want to present it to the city, right? Why didn't you, what happened with the county? Because aren't you in the county?
Mm-hmm.
So why do you want to annex into the city? So
because that also, and real quick, just to backtrack a little bit,
Sure.
that's going to increase the cost for everyone else, just annexing that amount of land, because now they're going to have to run everything out there. They're going to have to make sure they're getting all the city services,
right,
and all that, and is currently for one owner on the land. And so now all of that's going to be supported by who's already in the city paying.
right.
So you were talking about the bills, and everyone's kind of feeling the strain of these like utility bills and fees.
So we don't need an add-on.
Yeah.
We already are going to have to, like, what's going to happen if people decide that, hey, I don't want no property tax. And now, we already have to we should be already putting a plan in just in case. We should always start planning, being more proactive than, oh my goodness, the people voted, and then now we're scrambling, right?
Reactive.
Right.
Yeah.
We're being very, reactive about it instead of being proactive, which we can be right now, and so my concern is, and I guess I don't know, I guess just living the way that I live. And I'm like, what do this person really want? Like, why are you wanting, what is the real reason? Why are you wanting to annex? So, and you want to annex into the city. So now the city has to make a decision. Is it because, and this is just my, I could be doing conspiracy theory, but if you have a property, and let's say you have, I think it's over 1,700, acres or something like that.
Yeah.
That is big enough for a data center.
That's a good point.
Okay. And so, and I'm looking at timeline. So the county said, we're going to do a moratorium. So they got that locked. So now all of a sudden, oh, you want to annex? Because there's no moratorium over here, right? And you know that this majority usually votes that way, right? So now that we have no moratorium, and this is what you want to do, it makes me wonder if you are trying to do that, because Lake Jackson, you have a water source right there, right? But you can't. That will be very sad if somehow
because it would either be, I'm assuming it would either be there or on the south side, probably, because we also have Lake Munson, but Lake Munson is in the county,
but we don't want it here, period. And like I said, we would have to start doing provisions right now, because my fear, and that's the thing, what why do you want to do that? We can't afford to be annexing anything right now. We got streets to fix. We got, after school programs and stuff that we don't know what's going to happen with the taxes. We have a lot of other stuff. We got unfinished projects that are supposed to be for affordable housing. Orange Avenue redevelopment still sitting over there unfinished, but we need affordable housing. But yet you all are out there,
annexing more property.
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it's like, we need to work with what we got right now and really take a look at our budget. We need to, for me, I know I would want to have an audit done.
Yeah.
For all the
Can you publish that for me?
Yes, it should be.
Yeah.
It should be, because it is the residents' money, right? There should be computer access, like a scoreboard or something up to where people will be able to just go on, and it needs to be friendly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right? It needs to be a way that it's very friendly for even a kid can get on there and look and understand what they're looking at.
Yeah.
So we need to deep dive. We need to go back to the drawing board, and we need to start getting little focus groups, being open to hear from residents instead of seeing the same old people saying, coming forward and saying that, they always want to, oh, let me bring this person. Well, that person's been there before. It's time to move forward. It's time for a new era, and if we stay stagnant, we're never going to go anywhere. People are just going to constantly want to leave Tallahassee.
Yeah.
And we gotta bring people in, because if we want those low flight rates, we want different variety of airlines.
We want people to come visit their kids at school.
Right. We want people to do all this. Like, we want our teachers to be paid what they're really worth. Like, these teachers, I mean, they're teaching our kids, and some of our kids are not the easiest kids to deal with, right? So
not your kids.
Not your kids. Your kids are perfect. Okay. But we really need to get back to basics. And we know that with crime, and I'll just touch on that. The crime here is starting to get out of control, but we know that the police can't do it by themselves. Okay.
Well, no one can.
They can't do, and that's why, for me, I want to create a comprehensive crime prevention planning, like make a whole department.
Can you talk a little bit more about like what you envision that to look like?
Yeah, I can, because I'm a trendsetter, and I know someone's gonna take it. So I'm giving y'all some golden nuggets.
You heard it here first.
You heard it here first.
Real quick before you go into that.
Okay.
Welcome to Florida Capital T. My name is Anna Marie. I'm sitting down Miss Tifany Hill. Tifany, you're running for?
Tallahassee City Commission, seat 5.
Seat 5. All right. And then her link is also connected somehow to this. I'm sure you can find it.
It's on the letter T, the number 4, tally.com is my website.
So let's get into it. Let's find out more about this.
So I'll give you a snippet. Give you a snippet. So
just
what it is,
tease us a little bit, I guess.
Just a little tea, a little tea. So, what it is bringing, stakeholders together. So we're talking about your clergy. We're talking about, the police department, residents for sure, like those mom and pops, even kids, even young teens that are in that, middle ground, right? Mm-hmm. We need to have their input. Maybe they're not in college, or they're fresh in college, and maybe they're in a senior in high school, right? So we want to see what is going on there. We want to know, and we want to bring people in that actually has that background. Like, if we're talking about crime, then I need to reach for somebody who maybe back in the day they was nothing nice, right? But now they have a story. You know, they have a story. I was in the gang. No, I'll tell you, South City Fly Girls. That was me. I sure was. I sure was. Yeah, you know, but we didn't have, you know, guns and all of that. No, it was like either you get beat up or, you know.
You're right, we do need kids who
We
have
do.
walked that existence and they
Exactly.
understand that perspective because they've been in those shoes.
Exactly.
And they can relate to other kids who are also kind of wrestling with that idea of, you know, well, what are people going to think if I, you know, stop doing this or
Right.
if I don't join or, you know, so kind of someone who can relate to them a little bit.
Right.
I like that.
Right. Because now, like, you know, a lot of kids, I don't think you can even talk them into doing a ride with the police.
No?
You know, like you know,
a ride along?
Your ride along. Like they probably wouldn't do that. Like, no, I want my friends to see me. So we have to come up with other ideas. But like the little kids, you know, they may, you know, take into that. And
well, when I worked as a paramedic, we had all the vehicles out at the show and tell, the ambulance show and tell. Right. The police would be there and the fire trucks. And, you know, the kids loved all of them. I think they really loved the police because the police would also bring out the dog, you know.
Right, so
they had the dog with them.
Exactly.
I just had an ambulance, but they had like the dog and the lights and the sirens and
yeah. And I remember watching like Judge Hatchet. I don't know if you remember. She had a show. She was kind of like Judge Judy, but she did what's called reality checks. Okay. And she would send like the most troubled teens with a police officer to go to a crime scene that was, you know, of course, I'm sure she got the parents' permission, but at the same time, it's like this kid can be either like this person that they're looking at, or either they can be the person that actually pulled the trigger. Because I don't think some kids actually realize what gunshots, firing a gun do. And some kids, you know, they tell you if you pull it out, you better use it. Because if you don't, the retaliation could be even worse. And, you know, we just need to do more crime prevention advertisements. We need to get back into like, you know, police officers or sheriffs, you know, going to the schools, having conversations, you know, even as a city commissioner, going in to the schools and talking, you know, and sitting down with the teachers, going in and having a teachers meeting and say, hey, what are y'all experiencing, you know, here, and what can we do to help make this better? And that's when the collaborative effort comes in, when you get with the county. That's when I would reach out and say, hey, we need to go into your little territory. And I understand that we may not always see eye to eye on some things, but is this something that we can do together? Yeah. You know, and you go and you approach, you know, if I'm a city commissioner, you know, maybe one evening they having the county commission meeting, I may want to go in there and be like, hey, I just want to know if we can get together and have a little
I know this great tea shop.
Right. I know this great tea shop that we can come to, and I'll buy the tea. You just come, and where we can have this conversation and see, you know, I always believe in, we know what the problem is having the solutions for it, right? So let's all come to the table with a possible solution.
I think that that's what's so great about hearing from so many different people is that, you know, you get this wide range of solutions for everything. And that's what's so beautiful about having a commission that does listen to people come forward. Because I've heard neighbors in these commission meetings come with like amazing solutions to problems. You know?
Especially those, I mean, those that are the people that like environmentally friendly. Like we really do need to get back earth friendly.
I'm sitting there taking notes.
Yeah, we need to become earth friendly because, you know, I went over in the what's the name of that area? It's off of Fred George. There's a holding pond over in that area in a subdivision, And it's litter everywhere. We have, we have a litter problem.
Yeah.
And we really need to recycle our recycling program. When I was a young girl living in South City, in Orange Avenue apartments, there was a time when we would basically be scouring not only our neighborhood, but other neighborhoods for cans because we had a recycle facility over there next to Burger King. You remember that? Yeah. And I'll tell you, we used to be like, oh no, I got this one. And so we would take it over there and it was fun for us because we knew that we can get money. And then we can go to the little corner store and get us some little candy or whatever. And I believe that we should bring some of that back, right? We should look at different options. Like when I lived in Washington State, in Tacoma, they actually, if you recycled, you got a discount on your utility bill.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was going to deep dive and check back into that.
Yeah, how they
and
track
see,
it. Yeah.
and to benchmark that idea. And that's why you need a city commissioner that believes in looking outside the box, right? Looking outside the box and outside of your state and being able to reach out and talk to those people, create those collaborations and ask those questions about how are you all doing this? I know that you're kind of compared to the population that we have. So how can we benchmark our affordable housing or our utilities and our water supply and things like that? And that's what's so unique about me because I'm able to do that type of stuff. Like everywhere when I worked for the government, my job was a veteran outreach program specialist. And I covered 39 counties, North Florida and South Georgia. So I'm dealing with two different states, right? So, it is a matter of appealing to people and people are seeing and feeling your passion for making change or helping folks, to make their life better, by any means necessary, and I think that we have gotten away from that by just looking at the money. It's always people want to look at the money. Like even with campaigning, people want to look at your financial report. Please help yourself. But do know that the amount of money that somebody raised or even the less of it does not mean that they're not, really capable of doing the job. And it doesn't mean that they are capable.
I've heard a lot of frustrations around too, like with the campaigning. It's just really hard to run a campaign without funding. And I hear that frustration quite a bit. That it's just you have to have the funding. Well,
to that, I actually own a magazine company.
Yeah, I remember that from last time.
Yes, it's called Steel and Grace Women's Veteran Magazine. And even with my first magazine that I had that I started in Atlanta, which was Model Call Magazine, I'm always seeing a need. And where there's a need, I want to try to make a way. So the first need for Model Call was because we models, I was modeling as a plus size model in Atlanta. And they will talk about exposure, but I was not seeing the exposure for us women that were doing it.
So a lot of words, but not a lot of
action. Not a lot of action, right? And I'm about action. I'm more of a doer, so a lot of stuff my brain is constantly circling with businesses and ideas because I'm an entrepreneur, like at heart. And entrepreneurs really are creative people and we really like to find outside of the box ways of doing things. And so, with that, I think that we should be finding out what the need is and immediately taking steps to create something that is solid with other people in mind, right? And that's the type of person that I am, and that I've always been that way. The Women's Veteran magazine. Our voices, most women veterans feel like they're invisible, So I started a magazine because of the Florida Department of Veteran Affairs, Women's Veteran Liaison, say, hey, I heard that you did a magazine previously, a couple of magazines previously, and why don't you do this type
What
of
an
magazine?
inspiration too.
It is because you know why? Because she hadn't seen my magazine, she just heard.
Yeah.
And she believed in me that I could do it. And I did it with little or no money. It doesn't take much money to do something that you're really passionate about, you know. And as an entrepreneur, really we have to invest in ourselves. So if I have the funding to invest in myself to do the best that I can to show the residents here that I am somebody, I am not new. A lot of people know me. It's just some that cannot say, get into this political arena, with me because they are under certain restrictions.
Yeah.
But what matters to me is when people go to the polls, August 8th through the 16th and 18th. It's very important. Right. So that's I see signs all over the place.
Yeah.
And, we always would say, like in the military, like a lot of stuff you have to look at, like it's over exaggerated and it becomes like a dog and pony show, right? It's not, it's not really saying the real of who that person is. Yeah. For me, I have a few signs here in most important places, and I'm on the phone working with what I have. My team is awesome. They believe in me, even though a couple of them can't even vote for me because they're not even in the city limits. Well, their neighbors across the street
but they're
are.
making phone calls.
But they're making phone calls. I have people, that believe in me even outside of the states, because I've been all over and because I have a large family network. I have veteran sisters and brothers who believe in me and they're willing to get on the phones. So
a couple of things that have happened since we last talked.
Sure.
Was one, the blueprint meeting. They were discussing, because that's a combination of the city and the county, so you're going to have to work with other personalities there.
Right.
But then also just the funding for blueprint, right? So Tharp Street was one of the ones that was kind of brought up that, like, hey, we're not really having the funding. And then we were kind of talking, or they were kind of talking about Airport Gateway and how much money has gone into that. And so what are your thoughts on, I guess, the spending there as far as roads go, repairing roads, making sure that these main roads are all getting the same amount of love?
Right.
But then also, I kind of want to know, how do you deal with controversy? So if you are dealing with all these different personalities on the commission and someone doesn't agree with you, what is your go-to to dealing with controversial personalities?
Okay. Okay. So, I mean, that's a good question because, I believe in civility and respect. It goes both ways. And, from what I've seen, there needs to be a little bit more refresher training on what that actually is and what it looks like. And I feel like for me, my process would be like, before we go and have this meeting, we need to have some type of workshop or whatever to kind of see where everybody is sitting at, in reference to this particular agenda item that we know, when you have your hot topics, I like to call them hot topics, because you hear residents, you see it on social media where people are upset about certain things. And so I just think that they need to have a meeting, even if you have to bring in a mediator, to kind of keep stuff moving, because sometimes what I've learned, even, just being in the military, in the government service, like you have different personalities, right? Some people are so used to talking a certain way that it's normal for them. And they may not even realize
how it's landing.
how it is landing. They may think that it's perfect. Like, no, I'm not yelling at you, or I'm not saying nothing to, like offend somebody or whatever, but it is offending somebody, and so we have to have more trainings. I would suggest that, like in the government, there was like mandatory training, civility and EO and ethics training, all of that. And I think that that is something that is very important. And I know they may have it, but they may need a little bit more of it, and it may need to be one that is like a combination of like city and county, and then maybe one with just the city and the county have their separate. Like, I think that we need to do more of that. Then it would, when they get on the bench, it's not looking like y'all want to strangle each other,
right.
and
like a
make
lot of these have to happen in the sunshine. So
right.
I think maybe more meetings where like we're not going. I don't know.
Right.
Something
They can have it where, it's open, but you could do training. I mean, civility, all those trainings can benefit everybody, even the residents. Like, you couldn't just have one big civility training, and then have breakout rooms and different things like that. That way the residents really get to know like the different commissioners, especially the commissioners that maybe not in their district, or, if they're at large, so they can really have that connection and hear from everybody. We need to, I heard it used to say like one Tallahassee. We need to truly make it like, one Tallahassee, as far as like us being respectful of each other and utilizing the resources that we already have instead of reinventing the wheel.
Yeah.
We got a lot of different departments and all this kind of stuff. And that's why I say I would like to have an audit done to see, because I would like to learn, like, what are all these departments and how much money are they getting, and what's, so it'll be all about, looking at the organizational chart and seeing like, okay, so we got all these executives, but are all of them really necessary? Like, how do we look at that? Because eventually we're going to have to save some money somewhere. We're going to have to do better than what we are doing now. And we want to make sure that, like, when we have, city commissioners that the voters put in those seats, that they are actually, are a voice for the people, for the residents here. If you're a city commissioner and you live on the north side or whatever, and people know it, they gotta believe that you're looking out for everybody, not just the people on your side of town. They have to truly feel like, see you in their community too. You can't just get in these seats and then you just disappear and you show up when there's really amazing interviews like what I'm doing now. But, or there's ribbon cuttings or a new building is going up and you need to throw a little dirt or whatever. People are tired of that, and they lost confidence and faith and trust in this city. And it's going to take, it may take more than 4 years for someone to gain trust in Tallahassee and for you to even make that change, that difference. So what can we do? And what we can do is start by getting out of those seats, planning charrettes or town hall meetings with local residents and business owners. We can't forget the local business owners. Some of them are struggling. Some of them, we have to hold the owners of some of these buildings accountable because if you get an entrepreneur that's moving into a building and they have to basically renovate your property,
Yeah.
Come on now. Come on. They've
got to put so much money into it, and they don't even.
They got to put so much money into it on top of advertising the business to gain clients. So what are we doing to help them? They got to find people that will want to work for them, right? So most people that I've spoken with, they will say, I like this job. Like, I wouldn't mind applying for it, but they don't have no healthcare benefits. So we have to look at, like, how can we help these businesses get some type of healthcare initiative in there that they will be able to, can we give an incentive to the neighborhood centers? Hey, if y'all can partner up with this person and blah, 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 like that type of stuff. This is the type of stuff. This is what I mean by thinking outside the box, right? Because I honestly feel, and I'm going to speak about the neighborhood clinics. We need to have more. We need to, on different ends of the city.
Yeah, because I know usually the one that's, down south here, they have a long list of a wait time.
Right.
And you can't just walk in whenever you need an appointment. You have to make an appointment. But you can't make an appointment so far out in advance.
Right.
And so I know there's also like that issue there where it's just there's not enough resources there.
And that's why we need to pour some, I feel like we need to help those clinics. We need to have more other clinics. That's why we need to look at our building stock, right? I know there's a building right on Appalachian Parkway that sits next to, it was a Mexican restaurant. It's across from Zingali's and Olive Garden.
Okay, I know.
You know what I'm talking about.
I know what you're talking about. I don't know which building.
There's a whole building there. Like, can we make that like a clinic? What can we do to help? And I know when I went to a meeting that some of the neighborhood clinics were at, they were talking about staffing. They need more staff. They need, more doctors and, services and stuff like that. And I think we should be able to come to the table and see really what the needs are and be able to, help. But we got to look at our own budget first and see what's going on there so that we can help these, organizations that are doing great things. Yeah, they're doing great things.
Actually, I do have one more. One more question.
Sure.
If you have any questions, feel free to interject into the conversation too. I do have one more question for you.
Okay.
I'm Florida Capital T. My name is Anna Marie. I'm sitting down with Tifany Hill. Tifany, what seat are you running for?
Tallahassee City Commission C5.
All right. So one of my questions, another one of my questions is, since we last talked, I forgot the city manager has resigned, and I want to hear your thoughts on, should that be something that the new commission decides? Should that be something the old commission decides? How should that process play out in your opinion? Tell me your thoughts.
Yes. So I feel like the new commission should be the ones to decide who the new city manager is, because they are going to be the one that's going to be working with that person. And we would like to make sure that we get someone that is, for me, I would want someone who's not afraid of getting out of their office and going to check some of these sites and stuff, being that oversight person, like truly being that oversight person and we'll answer the calls of residents here. Like they really need to be involved, um, in that they look into all the departments that they're in charge of, and make sure that funding is flowing the way it's supposed to. I will hold them fully accountable for if we have a situation where we're paying for $8,400 doors. That is a problem where we're getting into deals with people that don't have money to pay us, and then they're going outside, bringing outside people into the family business. I like to say the family because we should be a family here, right?
Yeah.
And so that's why I feel like we should wait, because right now this commission don't make good decisions to me.
Yeah.
They don't make good decisions to me, and their processes are not a process that I would see that is for the greater good of the residents here in Tallahassee. So I would like to wait and have the new city commission be the ones to decide who that city manager would be, because it's a whole new culture, work culture.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's going to be a whole new dynamic.
And
too,
it will
right?
be
new personalities.
and that's what I mean by the culture.
This
It's
is a big
whole
race.
right.
There's two seats that are essentially up. You have the mayor and you have seat 3. So we're going to see a new face, and
regardless, there will be a new face there.
And then we have your race. So
right.
There's a potential there for
right.
Another personality, another new personality
exactly.
to step in. So I mean, I agree. It's definitely something for that
balance. Yeah, it is. It's something that, so that person, if they get in now, it's like they're going off of what's in the now.
Mm-hmm.
And so when the new people come in, then it's like, okay, we got to retrain this person, like, are we going to be fighting against a wheel, or are we going to have this wheel rolling with us? Like, so how can we have to retrain that mind.
And everyone has to feel comfortable with it.
Yeah.
Too,
yeah.
Everyone on the commission has to feel comfortable.
Right.
In there.
Right.
I think even if I was, to apply or whatever, I would want to be someone who everyone felt comfortable with.
Right. Exactly. So you're
kind of benefiting the new city manager.
Right.
The commission that way.
But if for some reason it goes through where they, bring in a new city manager before, then I would say for the new city manager to consider that like the military. When you go into basic is to break you down, right? They break you down, and then now here comes the build up. We are the build up. So just take that as the breakdown, getting your feet wet or whatever. And then when the new people come in there, then this is the rebuild.
So let's say a new city manager is voted in before you get elected. Let's say you get elected. What is how are you going to potentially handle a city manager that maybe has a different personality than you? How maybe they're very contrary, or they, how would you handle maybe trying to bridge that first and trying to mend that relationship?
Well, just like, and it's so funny when you say that, because it sends me back to the military, right? Like, and even in the government, like you work with many different personalities. I mean, I've actually lived with someone for the first time who had never interacted with a black person. But by the time she was ready to go, we were best of friends. Good. And we're still really good friends to this day. We call each other sisters, and she looks nothing like me, right? But you have to meet people where they're at. I've worked in the mental health side of the house for a while, and I've watched, a lot of the great, social workers and how they deal with people, because I'm the first line of defense that, some of the veterans may see or talk to. and everything. So you have to meet people where they are. And then you find out, you break them down. Hey, well, where you from? It's just simple conversation instead of just diving, jumping on them. You need to find out like who they are.
Get to know them a little bit.
Right, a little bit, and say, hey, what was your experience before I got in here? I want to know your thoughts and what your plans are and what you see. Tell me some of the pros and cons, and how can I meet you halfway? How can we work this out? And let me tell you what my ideas are. Yeah. And let's see how we can work this so that we can have a team, because that's what you should be. A team. You're a team for the people, and you have to really keep reiterating that, putting that out there. We are a team. There's no I. There's no I in this team. We work together, so we have to, if we move as a team and move with force and passionate and with an open ear, oh man, we can make some changes in Tallahassee. Yeah, we can. Like quick, fast, and in a hurry. A lot of stuff. And people who would want to come here and develop, they will be like, wait a minute, Tallahassee don't play about their environment. They don't play about their residents. They don't play about their money. Like, so when you come here, you know that we mean business. Yeah. Because we're going to, for one, have our clawback provision. Nope, this is what it is. If you don't follow through, this is what's going to happen, right? You're going to give us our $27 million back. Because we're going to follow up. If I give you money, why would I just give you money and not say, okay, let's see what y'all did. Yeah. How much of that money did you really spend? And if you did not spend all of the money, then you should give it back. So maybe I need to say you will be audited 90 days after you complete your process. Yeah. And we will come in and take a look.
And how much everyone charged.
Right.
Kind of as if it was a government project.
Exactly, because we don't want fraud, waste, and abuse. Yeah. We're not your fraud, waste, and abuse market. No. So we want them to be just as transparent as the residents want us to be. Yeah. So I will hold their feet, as we say. Okay. I will hold their feet to the fire. You will not play with our money. You will not play with our time, and I'm open to growing Tallahassee. Yes, we need to grow, but we need to be smart about it.
Intentional growth.
Intentional. Yeah. Yes. We don't need to make unnecessary, we don't need to reinvent wheels and stuff. What we need to do is make sure some of these streets are repaired.
Get
yes.
Down the Tharp Street.
I mean, just coming here, and riding down Franklin. Mm-hmm. Oh my goodness. It's like, okay, I see y'all do patchwork. And that patchwork is like you just drop a blob down and you like, oh, okay, let it dry. And now my car is getting off balance. I'm gonna have to buy some more time. Right, exactly. And it's like, no, we definitely have to get it together. Mm-hmm. We gotta clean it up. And I want to be the cleanup woman, right? So
roll up your sleeves.
Roll up my sleeves, yes. And I'm not afraid to get dirty. Mm-hmm. And I will be that person that will pop up on any city project and say, hey, what are y'all doing? Mm-hmm. Because that's just how I am. I've been that way. When Terra Lakes was going through whatever, it was nighttime. I've never been over there before. I didn't even know those apartments were back there. And I went there and it was basically nighttime by myself. And I was like, hey, what's up? What's going on? And the people were like, oh, they'll look like, well, who are you? And I was like, I introduced myself, said who I was. And they were very open and was like, come on, let's show you around. And we got to do better with code enforcement. Oh. We gotta make sure these people who want to buy these buildings here, these apartments here, we have to hold them accountable. We have to hold, you charging these people from $1,400 on up for rent. but yet they have stairs missing, and there are kids over there, right? And then now they're going to have to move, and they have no help. Now they're scrambling to see who can help them get a U-Haul and move and finding places. Like, we need to have an emergency backup team or something to go into action
Okay.
when stuff is
Yeah.
like that. You know, we have to look at that. We need to start utilizing like resources that we already have.
Yeah.
You know, so I feel if we start just really opening up our eyes, if we start being awake, right? Because we can't stay woke if we're not awake. And we have to create that awakening for the people to wake up, right? So if we do that, I think Tallahassee is going to be the best environmentally earth-friendly town. And I believe that more people would want to come here because it's not a crowded city. You know, I never want to see Tallahassee as a concrete jungle. And I've said that many of times, you know, because when we don't have these beautiful trees, even though they could be scary now, we're not going to forget about that. I know they can be scary. I had like 3 huge trees fall during that tornado. That tornado came through, and I tell you, it knocked down those trees like they were bowling pins. And I was just blessed that they did not fall on my house with me and Kobe in the hallway balled up. Right. And so I just, you know, I think that I know that if we just put a little bit more effort in listening to the residents and just taking time to go out and do these town halls, charrettes and stuff, and not have them be pop-up town halls at the last minute or after the fact.
Intentional town.
Right. Yeah. We have to be proactive. Just like we have to be proactive in our healthcare. Yeah. We have to be proactive in the decisions that we are making, you know, in order to move Tallahassee forward, in order to keep a whole half of the city coming in the city hall and be angry. Like, why do you think people are angry? Why do you think that you have that many people coming in the city hall like that? And, you know, you should understand that you're not going out in the community, so the community is coming to you, and you're only having one meeting a month.
Yeah.
Then you should be having your other meetings. You should be hitting the ground running. And that's for every city commissioner, everybody who's in that position.
I can't remember, was the last time we talked, had they already reduced costs?
Yes, the time for the non-agenda items. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they had did that. And, you know, that wasn't necessary to do that because so many people, now you got working families. Yeah. A lot of them cannot get off from work at the times that you have to come and speak, you know, on a certain item, you know, at 3:00. Some people they can't make it. You know, they can't afford to take off from work and do that, because if they take off from work, they're pretty much going to have to take off the rest of the day. Yeah. That's money that they're losing. We have to change that. We have to change that. Something has to be done, and we have to be able to sit and be able to listen to people. You know, people won't be yelling at you if you get out there and talk to folks. Yeah. You know, they won't be in there frustrated and all of that, but you have to be the type of person, like if someone is sitting peacefully, like, for instance, the one organization that was sitting peacefully with their little signs that was like
I remember that.
Just a piece of paper. They weren't saying anything, just as quiet. I wouldn't even bother them. They're not hurting nobody. They're not yelling. They're not doing any of that. They're just doing their little peaceful protest. Okay. I remember there was a gentleman when I first got here. He used to be standing up on the side with his sign, and he was peaceful. Nobody, they didn't really, unless he started yelling out or something, and they would say, okay, now, but for the most part, people are being peaceful and stuff. You don't aggravate that.
Yeah.
You wait till afterwards and say, hey, you guys, I appreciate, your feelings and all that, but we want to not do that or what have you. But I don't see that was wrong. I really don't. They weren't bothering nobody. So that's the type of environment that you want. You want a peaceful environment, and you want people to feel like they can approach you and they can talk to you, and that you can take criticism, right? You have to be able to take criticism. I'm getting criticized, on social media or wherever, because people have a right to their opinions of you.
Yeah.
And that's okay. That's okay. As long as I know what my heart is, and it's all about the residents and how I can support them in their tax and protect their tax dollars, and not let it be a free for all, and really listen to the residents, and not, another issue I've heard people say, they talk about, oh, these alliances and people have, I can assure you I don't have an alliance with anybody. When I'm on a team, I'm on a team, but I may not always agree with someone on my right or my left, but we will have an understanding and we will be respectful in being able to talk about, well, why do you feel this way?
Yeah.
And I can respect your feelings, but how can we meet in the middle?
I think it's great to have people, I guess, disagree.
Yeah.
Because I think that's where we really make the progress, right?
You
That's
will.
where we kind of find those solutions in between that we wouldn't really think about.
Right.
If we everyone just agrees with one person,
right,
we never actually find a better solution.
Right. And I think, I've heard some residents, they're tired of that. So what's going to happen now? Is the 3-2 actually going to flip to
that's why there's such a big race.
So it's like, hey, do that make it even better? Do that make it better?
Yeah.
So we have to have some people who are like, I'm for the residents, and at the same time, let's make sure that we have a collaborative effort, and building up a comprehensive team, of residents and stakeholders that can come to the table. And I like digging for the unsung heroes, in the city. I don't want to see the same faces all the time. I don't. I respect those that are, out here in the Tallahassee streets, as we would say. But at the same time, I want to give other people an opportunity as well, because we do have a lot of unsung heroes out here that people just do not know
we need
about.
an unsung hero award for all the people.
Exactly. And I would say, as in my seat, of course you have the incumbent that, people know because that's the incumbent. Then you have another opponent who people know. Yeah, they know because she's been in that seat before, right? So of course. Then you have me, who people do know. It's just that some people don't know. There's other people who have not ever been in the rooms or at the tables that I have been at that don't know me, right? So, it's get to know me, because I guarantee you, if I was a young soldier, right? And I'm gonna give you this scenario. I was a young soldier, and I had did what we call a swap in the military. I found someone who was the same MOS or job description as me, and they were in Atlanta. I was in San Antonio at Fort Sam. I was ready to leave. Fort Sam, I had been there forever. And so I found someone who would switch with me. Well, over time, I learned a lot, and I worked at the Fort McPherson base, and I was in it was an old clinic, really old clinic, and they was like, we're going to send you to professional leaders development, training. And so they did that so they can promote me as a corporal.
Okay.
So corporals are really like unique ranks, and they only do it when they want you in, you don't have enough points to be a sergeant yet, but you're in that, you're almost there, but they need somebody to fill a leadership position. And so I was put into a position of non-commissioned officer in charge. So basically supervisor of a specialty clinic. So I had to handle my own budget. I had to keep track of what I was spending, what I was ordering, keeping track of the stock level of it, bringing in doctors because it is a specialty, bringing in doctors every month that, I had to pretty much speak them to come down and accommodate, excuse me. And so I would be in charge of doing performance appraisals. So I have been doing performance appraisals for years, and which is a handful in itself. Yeah, and so and then I have employees who are under the union. So I had to learn, as a supervisor, I learned the union book, because, and I think everyone, who is a supervisor and your employees are under the union, you should get that book and read it, because the union it benefits both, really. Honestly, it benefits both. But, I was put into that position, and I asked why me when there are sergeants that could fill this position, because that position was like 3 grades above me, and they entrusted me to do that job. And I had majority of civilians that worked for me, and I had one soldier, right? And I had all these different clinics that I had no idea how to run those clinics. So I had to get a manual and actually read and sit down with the employees to be like, okay, tell me what you're doing. And I'm getting in their hands on. And that's how I learned. And the sergeant over me, the first sergeant, was saying, well, we put you in that position because we know you can do it.
No.
They believed in me. And that's why, I say today that I ask the residents here in Tallahassee to believe that I can, and I know I can do this job, and I will do it very well and in support of the residents here in Tallahassee.
I actually think that's a great place to end.
Yes,
Unless
because my
there's anything
allergies
else.
are kicking
Okay.
me.
All right. Well, thank you so much for
Thank you.
joining us, and I guess we'll see you later.
Bye.